Welcome to the Monday, February 13th edition of the PFF Forecast. This is the post Super Bowl edition. On a beautiful Monday, we're going to talk about the bets that won, some of the ones that lost, some of the things that we bet live in game. I'm going to bemoan Rihanna throwing me for a loop, the bet that I almost placed. I should have listened to someone much smarter than me. Alas, we're going to talk about the National Anthem Syndicate, holding, fourth downs. It's going to be a great podcast, and we're going to talk about what is up to bet next, Super Bowl futures for next year, and a lot more. Let's rock. We got to start with the most pressing question. Brad, you placed an incredibly sharp bet that combined the Super Bowl and Manchester United. How's that going?
I think our strongest position of the entire game was just our bullishness on Kenneth Gainwell. And if folks remember, that bet was Kenneth Gainwell, I actually think it was plus a half reception, if I'm remembering correctly, against the goals scored by Man United. Kenneth Gainwell had 4 receptions in the game. And Man United did not match that. So that was our top cross-sport bet of the weekend. Was an easy winner for the people.
That was absolutely amazing. So I placed a multi-sport bet, a parlay. Okay. I want to get your guys' take on this. Okay. So this is members of the printing press will appreciate this. So Chiefs money line. Okay. Suns NBA champions. Dodgers, Major League Baseball World Series champions. And then the fourth leg is the U.S. Open for this upcoming season. Max Homa, the tournament is being placed at Los Angeles Country Club. A member of the printing press, okay, a very smart, profitable, and esteemed gambler, okay, who shall not be named here, had some intel about Max Homa having like the 3 lowest scores at that tournament. Not that tournament, that course. And so he's like 32-1. So I put all those together. That was the last bet I placed before kickoff. And we're 1-0. We're 1-0. So I'm feeling good. Arjun, what about you? How's your betting day go?
Yeah, it was a good bet, decent betting day for me. I told you guys in our private chat I had like close to like 40 bets going. Some long shots, like some like straight bet, like good like normal straight bets at like even odds, but ended up a couple units. So happy with all of that and got some good live plays in that. Happy to talk about if we get to that.
Did you bet live at all?
Yeah, my favorite bet that I was like really happy about. It was Patrick Mahomes to record 10 plus rushing yards in the fourth quarter. It was one of the live quarter market props on FanDuel. And I'm like, Mahomes, I've seen Mahomes take over a game with his legs against my Chargers way too many times. And it was a 1-score game. And, he easily eclipsed out with that 26-yard run. I thought I was going to get some PTSD with the 49ers QB kneels but I didn't think he was going to get negative 17 yards with QB kneels at the end of the game. So that 10-yard rushing prop was plus 450, so it was a nice little payout for to end the game. And that was kind of like the only live bet I had going in that game.
Yeah, the Chiefs live at halftime got up to like plus 360. At least that's what I ended up getting it at. Now, the reason I was thinking actually about betting the Eagles, because Mahomes gets injured, he can barely walk. By the time they finished the quarter, he jogged just fine to the tunnel. So I saw that and I was like, if this guy's alive, then they're in really, really, really good shape. Because the markets are obviously going to think he's not in a good spot. So that was my big one. Honestly, that saved me because I put a lot into some of those kind of correlated SGPs. None of those quite got home. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I had the Eagles futures that I was pending hedging on basically. So I did take a decent amount of Chiefs pregame basically and try to get out to like +3 or +3.5. There were some books that were like weirdly not juiced correctly at +3.5 kind of towards the beginning before the game. So I took some of that. And I did bet Chiefs in game basically. I think the highest I actually saw them on the spread was like +6.5, which I thought they would actually be almost further out when they were down basically 2 touchdowns there in the second quarter, but the market was like weirdly anchored, I would say, towards the Chiefs. So I did bet them some at like +3.5 straight up, and then I think I had them like +210 or something on the money line in the second and third quarter. So it worked out well. Patrick Mahomes over 2.5. The forgotten, printing press bet basically was, I don't know, I don't want to say it was a lock, but it definitely felt like an easy victory, I would say, at the end of it, basically. So that was good. No Patrick Mahomes interception was also good. So yeah, it was, like you said, like outside of some long shot, same game parlays, there was just weirdly not enough Patrick Mahomes basically to get any of those home. I would say the rest worked out pretty well, I would say. So
It's interesting. I felt Patrick Mahomes, the Kelsey was running wide open first couple of possessions. It's like, this is going to be a nightmare. And it was interesting. I bet Chiefs live twice for a decent amount. One was after the first Eagles score, and one was at halftime. But I was preparing to bet them again, and was hoping that that Philly would score. Instead, there was a fumble 6 and the other way.
Right.
And weirdly, that play I thought really hurt the Mahomes overs, because if they don't get that right, and say even Philly has to punt, the Chiefs have to go down and score. They throw the ball, they continue to establish the pass. Instead, they score right there, and then Philly gets the ball right back and matriculates the ball down the field. And so time of possession in the first half was just, completely messed up. Then you had the Kadarius Toney return. You had a lot of kind of things that allowed them to rack up points without him having to go off. And Pacheco played well enough that, they could keep running. I felt that was a good bet in process. Just didn't kind of come through. I mean, even Juju had was it 5-6 receptions in the game? Like, you figure he's that involved. Mahomes must be going off.
The interesting point real quick on the Kadarius Toney, I mean, first of all, it just shows, I know he doesn't play a ton, but you give a compensatory third-round pick for huge punt return and the touchdown. That's all you really need to get out of him. But also, I thought it was interesting that Philly, their punter, Aaron Sipos, was hurt for the end of the year. He did get elevated for this game. They only punted twice, and I think maybe in part because of that. But the kick to Toney was a 38-yard punt, I want to say, that he did not hit cleanly. I think like an underrated storyline is like, if you just keep the backup punter in, does that Toney, magical return even happen? I don't know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That to me was the decision of the game. And I know this has probably been talked about a lot by many different people, but this is eerily similar to the last Eagles Super Bowl, which they won, where with 6:50 left in the game, they're down by 1 point to the New England Patriots. They have the ball at their own 40. It was 40 or 42 or something like that. 4th and 1 with Nick Foles, they go for it. And they end up converting on a pass to Zach Ertz, and they end up winning the game. They weren't going to punt the ball to Tom Brady, who had been on fire in that game. This very, very similar situation. I think they were about 7 yards further back. It was 4th and 2 in this situation. They had been aggressive all season, if that's the right term. It's not, but we'll call it that. They've been woke on 4th down is probably a better term in going for it. You could have lined up the 300 men fighting in Sparta on the other side of the Eagles on a QB sneak, and they would have no shot. It was a joke. I mean, everyone in the stadium could have been on the other side of the line against the Eagles, and they would have gotten, a first down, a QB sneak. They punt there, obviously ends up being returned. But that to me, everyone wants to talk about the penalty that was or wasn't. You're not in that situation if you press down on the gas the way you have all season. So to me, that was the biggest blunder. I don't know how you guys felt about it.
I also would jump in. I was surprised. Yes, it's a longer distance, but the 4th and 6 at the Kansas City 15-yard line when they were up, I want to say 24-21, and they kicked to go up 6. And as we've talked about, as Eric's written on the site before, kicking a field goal to go up 6 late in the game is not great. And of course, Kansas City comes down, scores a touchdown, and takes the lead right afterwards. So I get that 6 is not as easy as 2 or 3. You can't do your cheat code sneak QB sneak play that I think was literally like 7 of 7 last night. You probably can't do that for 6 yards, but they had the Jalen Hurts draw play on 4th and 5 that worked earlier in the game. Like, I think they probably should have gone for it there. If not, you give the Chiefs a long field, you still have the lead, and you're up a field goal. And Andy Reid already made a dumb field goal decision earlier in the game that they actually missed. So that one surprised me a bit as well.
Wasn't there? Sorry,
so
real quick, Ben.
There was actually one. Well, go ahead, Jordan.
I was just gonna say on that before that 4th down, wasn't there a penalty? Was it 4th and 1, and then they got a false start that moved them back, or there was a penalty maybe on the 3rd down that moved them back to like 3rd and 13? I want to say in that situation,
it was 3rd and 11. Well, so it's 1st down. No, Hurts took a sack on 1st down to make it 2nd 11, and then incomplete pass, and
okay, I'm thinking about that wrong. Go ahead, Ben.
I was gonna say I know everyone think and for the most part Sirianni did make the correct decisions on 4th down, but I even think when the Chiefs went up by 1 or whatever and they did punt back to Kadarius Toney, that was 3 straight. They had 3 straight pass plays on that down. They did gain 5 yards on 1st down to Dallas Goedert, and then they throw the ball twice on 2nd and 5 and 3rd and 5 or whatever, and they do complete it on 3rd down or whatever. But so it goes to 4th and 3, but it's one run play there on 2nd or 3rd down, and they're in 4th and 1, 4th and 2 again, and they are very much in prime position to sneak once again. And then the punt doesn't happen. They maybe take the lead once again if they do move down the field. So I do think there were a few instances. I know everybody wants to say Nick Sirianni kind of coached them to victory in this one, but I do think there were some slip-ups at the end, which very severely, I would say, tilted in the Chiefs' favor.
And Ben, they did do that earlier, right? There were a couple 3rd and intermediates, 3rd and 6s, where they ran the ball and then got to 4th and short, and then just used the cheat code play, which we'll see if that still exists in 2023. But yeah, there were some blunders, no question. He wasn't perfect, but I do think he kept them in this game a lot with a lot of his decisions in the first half.
And Jalen Hurts, he finished with an over 90 PFF grade. He had 5 big time throws, did not have a turnover worthy throw. I watched some of those throws back. I mean, there were some throws that were just amazing. I mean, one throw to Goddard, and by the way, our guy, Dallas Goedert, Kelsey's amazing, but Dallas Goedert made some incredible plays in that game. Some of those catches were really dynamite when they had to have them. Hurts made a couple of really good throws there. Throw to A.J. Brown, throw to, I want to say, was it Pascal or Watkins? They actually dropped it.
Watkins dropped the one. He did have the one, the throw down the sideline to Devontae Smith that wasn't a catch either at the end of the first half was really a good throw too, basically.
Yeah. And that was there were some calls that you could be mad about. That's certainly one of them. I mean, that was close. I thought that was gonna hold. So Hurts plays really, really well. On the other side, Mahomes, I think, given the fact that his ankle was not 100%, it was an incredible game. But I'm gonna ask you this, Arjun, because I feel like we're talking about Sirianni, we're talking about Hurts, we're talking about Mahomes. What about Andy Reid? Because Mahomes has fewer than 200 passing yards. They score touchdowns on every possession until they needed a field goal to win the game in the second half. And, I no Tyreek Hill, an injured Patrick Mahomes. What did you think about Andy Reid in this game?
Yeah, I thought he called a great game. The only, I think, misstep he had was kicking the field goal on 4th and 3 in the first half. But one of the things he did was utilize motion a ton. He utilized motion on 77.8% of their plays, overall. Last night, their season average was 64.5 coming into the game. And once they got into the red zone, it was motion. And I am curious if, I think Eric Bieniemy came out and said he looked at one play from the Jags game and said, this is what the Eagles do against motion. And they hammered that all night. And going into the game, the Eagles actually had the 4th worst EPA per play in the red zone against motion, the 2nd worst success rate allowed against motion in the red zone. So the Chiefs obviously found a huge tendency that the Eagles defense really struggled against, and they hammered it home multiple times, and especially in those high leverage situations in the red zone. I mean, they had pretty much they had 2 touchdowns coming directly off of a fake fly sweep, and one Jerick McKinnon pass, which I think should have been a touchdown. Had a, I think it was Avonte Maddox not had a great play on the ball in terms of his tackling, but it was a masterful game plan by Andy Reid, and I think that was one of the best games I've ever seen him call in a big situation.
Yeah, I would agree. I also think, I mean, it's a shame that you're not going to give MVP obviously to a coach. I think Mahomes kind of got it by default and probably rightfully so, but maybe if it wasn't for that fumble, like I think there's a case to be made for, and this will probably never happen with Mahomes, but a case to be made for the MVP being a player on the losing team. I thought Jalen Hurts was absolutely insane in that game. And, things beyond his control don't go the other way. I mean, seeing what he might have been able to do with a chance to go for it on the fourth down or to get the ball back with 1:30 left, we could be talking about one of the most incredible games in Super Bowl history, by any player. I mean, that's kind of what it was shaping up to be. So I don't know. I'll just kind of throw that out there. Any other thoughts on the game before we get to the important things, which are the national anthem and the halftime show?
I will say, kind of on your point of Jalen Hurts, like I think there was at least some understanding that he could very much like blow this game for Philadelphia. And obviously he did the exact opposite. And I'm not sure, it doesn't, we don't know exactly where he's going to land on like a veteran deal or anything, but it very much seems like he has arrived and is here to, I would say, like stay in a lot of ways. And they are very much like the class of the NFC top to bottom. I know they're going to lose some guys defensively and everything else. And they are obviously going to have to change things if Hurts, goes from what is by far the most team friendly deal, that we have in the NFL right now to something where he is paid, handsomely and for what he's doing on the field. But like, I think with the combination of Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, like they are very much, I would say, in the driver's seat for the foreseeable future, kind of like the Chiefs are in the AFC from my perspective. So
yeah, I would put a bow on that. I completely agree. Like that was a game where you never want to make a sweeping generalization of one game, but like that's a game where you say, okay, well, I think we can still compete with this guy on the veteran deal. Because, like you said, George, not just the deep balls, but the layered pass to Dallas Goedert, where it was, between two defenders in a tight window, touch pass on the right sideline was just, I think one of the best throws he's ever had in his career. I would have no issue paying him, but I think it'll be interesting. My takeaway is we're talking about Nick Sirianni, a lot of the good in-game decisions he made with Shane Steichen going to the Colts now, who calls plays for this team on offense right now. Is Sirianni going to take over play calling duty? Is he going to try to keep that with Brian Johnson, who sounds like their quarterback coach? They'll try to keep in the fold as the new OC. But if he has to call plays, can he also still be that good at some of the edge cases on fourth downs and things like that? I think that will be very interesting to see going forward.
They have 2 first-round draft picks as well. And we'll talk about the draft here in just a second. All right, before we start talking about next season, quick reminder that PFF, the NFL Draft Guide, the best, most comprehensive set of analysis on the NFL Draft, is live on pff.com, pff.com/draft/guide, or just go to pff.com and you will see it on the homepage. This is just the first version of this. We're going to come out with multiple over the course of draft season with more updates, combine data. There's even going to be a version of the draft guide that is going to culminate after the draft with draft grades, projections for next season, simulation results. It's really going to be the best draft guide season that PFF has ever put together. You can get that on pff.com right now. Also, go download the PFF app. The PFF Mock Draft Sim is now live in the PFF app, as is the PFF Big Board, along with all of the great content right at your fingertips. So you get all of that access with a PFF Plus subscription. You can get 20% off the promo code FORECAST right now, FORECAST. It is a great deal, and if you buy now, the annual subscription takes you all the way through the next season, so you get all that fantasy and betting goodness, plus a wonderful draft experience. Also, Western and Southern, our good friends at Western and Southern Financial, are helping you make sure that you put your money to good use. Western and Southern has a game plan for you no matter what your financial goals are, whether it's building a family, buying a home, or just saving money. Western and Southern can put together a game plan catered to exactly what you want to deliver. Go to westernsouthern.com/PFF to get started right now. Okay. It was nice that there was some football played around 2 dynamic, amazing musical performances. that was Chris Stapleton's national anthem and Rihanna at halftime. Let's start with the anthem. I'll just let you know, I thought it was over. Okay. We got the times before. We the rehearsal times. The second this dude starts the national anthem, I was just like, it's over. This dude is carrying everything out. I mean, what the hell was going on? How nervous were you guys?
I thought it flew over. I thought it was 10 seconds over.
Brave was like 15 seconds long, and I know the total for that was 5 seconds. So I was like, there's no way this goes over. And then like you start to see all the screenshots. I was like, I was under. I was like, holy, like it felt like the biggest over, and it was good, but it felt over for sure. I don't know. I can't explain it, but it was the longest 2 minutes of my life. That's for sure.
I know when George gave it like under 2 minutes and 7 seconds, I think there was a couple books that had it as low as like 1 minute and like 59 seconds. And there were chances where I think you could have got like an insane middle, right? And like, I think there are some people who are probably sharp enough that did that, but yeah, I was timing it at the Super Bowl party I was at. And I know some people had the under like 2 minutes 7 seconds, so it was a fun ride, and it did seem like it was gonna be close, but I think towards the end he pulled it in nicely.
He knew how much we needed it. Is what happened. He could feel it. I was timing it, and it does, like during the national anthem, it's hard to kind of remember how much is left, because you're not thinking about the national anthem a ton during, it's not like it shows up on Spotify all the time, So I'm kind of sitting there. It's like I want to say it was like 120 in, and I was like, hey, he's got like 2/3 of the song left to go. And in reality, he had like, I don't know, 20 words left. And so it came through. It was close though, and the guitar did not help things out. There's no doubt about it. I will say I thought that was one of the better national anthems. Like just.
Nick Sirianni agrees. Nick Sirianni certainly agrees. No, I know you're saying like you want to get a live angle and take the live over just based on his his scripted plays out of the gate. But yeah, he brought it home well. But yeah, it was really good. It was the music.
We need live national anthem betting. That is actually the greatest thing to come from. That would be amazing. Okay, Rihanna. What did we think? What did we think about Rihanna? Obviously, Run This Town did not happen. I felt like an idiot because people that know Rihanna better than I do actually told me about Better Have My Money. Had I listened to the song a little more closely, you could have seen why it made so much sense. So that's on me. Okay. Feel bad about that one.
I thought the interesting thing was, I had a bet down on a guest she was going to bring out. And she was going to bring out a guest. Obviously she did. It is her unborn second child. A great little play on words by Rihanna there with the surprise guest appearance being her being pregnant. But nevertheless, I mean, to not have a guest to play like 12 straight bangers and just it was great. I mean, if you're not a Rihanna fan, I don't know what you're doing.
I even heard Arjun got converted.
A little bit. I was getting a little bit hyped towards the end when I started recognizing some of the songs she was singing.
It was good. The outfit was incredible. I've already found it online, and so that'll be for next year.
Christmas.
That's going to be the forecast outfit.
The big red puppy coat.
Only one outfit too. That cashed as well. Basically, I think she only had one outfit. So
there's a bet on that.
Yeah, outfit changes basically. So it was, and color. I was not expecting red either. I thought she would go more neutral color. Unfortunately,
it also shows why she's a billionaire. That she did a little makeup touch up in the middle of the set, just being like, "Hey, by the way, like I've made more money on Fenty than I have on music, so I'm just going to remind you of that as well. I'm a casual billionaire out here just performing. It just, come on.
Yeah, I won't slander it at all. It was really cool. Unfortunately, did not go 2 for 2 on the songs. So we'll be better next year. We'll prepare, do some research in the off season, come back stronger. Okay, let's fast forward now into what's to come. So, obviously you can start betting Super Bowl futures for next year already. We have the draft coming up. We have season win totals. Just from your guys' perspective, maybe people that are new members of the podcast, members of the printing press, like which of these markets are the soft, I'll start with you here, Ben, like as you think about where to allocate money during the off season, because not all of these things can cash right during the off season. Like, what is your strategy as you head into the off season with betting?
Yeah, I mean, I very much like, the NFL draft is at the forefront, obviously being able to turn, bets over as quickly as possible makes that, but, very fruitful. But I also think just in general, like the lines are really soft. Obviously the limits aren't there, but you can make a ton of money just by like being up to date on information, I would say, from the NFL draft perspective. So I think like that's got to be the main focus. I know we are also going to get some XFL, action here relatively soon. Maybe we can get, some things going for that as well. But from, the Super Bowl and futures price, like right now, how I'm approaching it is like, I am very much trying to find, if I do want to bet something, I do want to make it maybe in like the mid tier to lower half on, a couple teams that I think are going to at least increase in value and can make the playoffs. And then from there, if you have like a pretty good long shot on a team, like this is very much where Philadelphia lived last year. Like you can do some things with hedging if they get into the playoffs and start to perform on some Super Bowl tickets. So I think like from my perspective, like I'm not going to bet the Chiefs right now, because I think, tying up money for that long for a 6-1 return, especially when, we don't know their schedule or anything. If they start off with a bad schedule, you're easily going to be able to get a better price on them, 3 weeks into the season or whatever as well. So a lot of the top teams I'm avoiding, but I am kind of looking for value either with an established quarterback that I think can have a much better year than last year, or a team that seems built outside of the quarterback position and could either land a veteran guy or get somebody that can quickly turn it around things, I would say, on from a rookie's perspective. So I think there's a couple teams I like. I might not send them out right now, but I can definitely give them away for, ones that I bet early on based on some promotions that some books have had, I would say. So yeah,
we'll make you give them out. Unlike our locks of the week, which by the way, aside from the 2 long shots, we've Arjun did the math here, 8-3. We had a couple of like 7-1 and was like 14-1 or something like that. Long shots. So Kenneth Gainwell knew how much we needed it. Miles Sanders, all-time disappointment of a Super Bowl there, but you can't reap the fruits of those of that labor the next week, right? With the Super Bowl odds. So here they are: Kansas City 6-1, as you mentioned, it's on FanDuel. Buffalo is plus 850. The Eagles are 9-1. The Bengals are 9-1. The Niners are 9-1. The Cowboys are 15-1. The Ravens are 16-1. Arjun's Los Angeles Superchargers are 20-1. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the Detroit Lions, and the New York Jets are 25-1. The Rams, the Dolphins are 30-1. The Packers, the Browns, the Broncos, and the Saints are 35-1. Ben Brown's Minnesota Vikings, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the New York Giants are 40-1. Pittsburgh Steelers are 50-1. And that is where we get into Carolina Panthers territory. So I'll stop there. If there are any of those super long shots that you guys like, call them out. But I'll start with you, Arjun. What do you like there?
Yeah, there's 2 I've kind of had my eye on. Like Ben said, I don't know if I feel comfortable tying up my money for that long, but I am looking at number 1, the Detroit Lions. I think having Ben Johnson back, it just boosts their stock tremendously this year. Playing in a kind of weaker NFC, no more Tom Brady, potentially no more Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they're in the mix for Lamar Jackson. Who knows what's going to happen there? But, one of the pieces I did like a month ago was looking at offseason resources. They're in the 81st percentile in terms of overall offseason resources, 95th or 94th percentile in terms of draft capital, using Brad's draft value chart. So, they're in a great position to potentially make some moves. Even if they stick with Jared Goff, I think the floor of their offense will be high, and Jameson Williams coming back will be great. So overall, I'm kind of bullish on them, Super Bowl, and I think their odds are might be a little bit high. Another one I like, Miami Dolphins. I'm not the biggest Tua fan, but I think just having Mike McDaniel as your offensive play caller, Tyreek and Waddle. And then they'll probably invest in the offensive line a little bit. I mean, I think they have a ton of offensive upside, and getting Vic Fangio, I mean, that's a huge upgrade from Josh Boyer. I mean, Fangio's really changed the way that NFL defenses have kind of shifted their like shells and structures. And I think he should be a good upgrade in the coaching department there. And he's going to have a plethora of weapons to use along the defensive line. And also kind of in the secondary, I am a little bit bearish on Xavier Howard long term, but I think Fangio could coach one or two more good seasons out of him. So I like the Dolphins and Lions. And I think Dolphins are also in a division where Bills could see some regression with guys like Micah Hyde, Jordan Porter leaving and not really having that great of a receiving room.
Brad, what about you?
Yeah, so the Lions one you took, right out of my mouth, and I think the big thing there is I think you can find edges on things that people aren't going to account for. So you mentioned, keeping Ben Johnson and then Jameson Williams. No one's going to view Jameson Williams as this. He's basically a brand new player next year, right? He had 3 touches this season. So in the same vein, for me, the Jacksonville Jaguars also at 25-1. Calvin Ridley, like people aren't talking about the fact they may have added a bona fide number 1 wide receiver at the trade deadline. That they won't pay a ton of money and won't be restrictive of adding more talent. But you drop them onto that team with the growth of everyone else around them, with a super young roster, with a bunch of recent, high draft picks that need to get better, particularly on defense. And then, the AFC South, I mean, Houston's still not going to be there. And Indianapolis, obviously not a very good team right now. Tennessee, I think the entire podcast probably bet them to miss the playoffs this year, and they're only going to get worse next year. So Jacksonville, to me, jumps out, and I like Detroit as well.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, so I can definitely agree with all the teams in like the 25-1 region, the Jags, Lions, Jets. I do see the bullish case for them. I think that's already been stated better than I can. So I won't really touch on them. I'm glad you mentioned the Carolina Panthers, so I don't have to, but they do intrigue me, I would say, in the NFC South. I do really like Frank Reich. I think, getting that job and landing in Carolina, I feel like he had to, in some ways, own his mistakes in Indy. Very much like going through like the veteran retreat quarterback option with a team that is, seems close to ready outside of the quarterback position. So I don't think they're going to go hard in on, a veteran quarterback, but I do think they kind of are in a decent range to either trade up and get their guy, on rookie deal. I am still somewhat bullish on Matt Corral as well. So I think, him having the year off basically from injury, maybe he's at least, a body.
Matt Corral, Super Bowl quarterback. You heard it here.
You never know what's going to happen here. So I do like them at 55-1. I think they got a much easier path than all the teams around them and could easily win their division. So I do like them. And then one, I know I do kind of want to avoid the AFC, but dropping a tier below where the 25-1 teams are, I think Cleveland is probably set up to at least increase in value as we get closer to the season. I think if things break incorrectly for Baltimore, like it isn't as tough of a division as people are probably talking about right now. If you do believe that Cincinnati is going to have a little bit of a tumultuous offseason as well, like they're very much a team that not a lot of other people are going to be talking about or betting on. So I think, middle of the pack or something, I think they are at least a team that could definitely get into the playoffs. And then from there, like they definitely have players at key positions that if they do get back to where they have been previously informed, like they could very much make some noise in the AFC. So.
But love your Carolina Panthers piece there, because Frank Reich, the difference between, what they had there at the start of last season versus what they'll have now is ginormous, right? And you think about the NFC and how bad it is. You might have Aaron Rodgers moving from there. You've already lost Tom Brady. So I actually look at a team in a similar position in the NFC, and I look at the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears have a ton of assets at their disposal to acquire players. They have a quarterback who, I'm not going to compare Justin Fields to Jalen Hurts, but who a lot of people have, decided to write off, who is a unique talent as an athlete, who, if he gets some talent around him, you saw what kind of talent Jalen Hurts now has around him, that he could make some moves there. So they're 65-1. They're obviously a huge long shot, but you might be getting Aaron Rodgers out of there in that division. You talked about the Lions. Yes, they're a great team, or it looked to be an improving and ascending team. I wouldn't call the Minnesota Vikings a team that had, a disappointing, to say the least about it, point differential this year as being the most intimidating, group on the planet. So that's a super long shot. And then I think you mentioned the Jets. I think the Jets are in a great position, right? They're, a quarterback away, but it seems as if there could be some opportunities there. I mean, I even think if they were to get a Jimmy G, that would be an interesting team given how much talent they have around them. Obviously, if they get Aaron Rodgers, it'd be an interesting one.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say a real quick point on the Bears because Arjun and I were talking about this pre-show. So another thing to look into, and maybe I'll make this into an article because it's more time sensitive. If you also know a team has a bunch of resources or is going to make a bunch of moves, you can't bet that after March 13th. The value is gone. So last offseason, I had futures on the Chargers and the Philadelphia Eagles because I knew, all right, quarterback going into the third year of his rookie contract. That is historically, it's when the Cardinals and Giants went crazy for Kyler Murray and Daniel Jones. It's when the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs. Like you go back and look at these first round quarterbacks, the offseason where the team goes all in and basically says, we're going to show this guy is a dude or if he's a dud and move on, is that third year. And Chicago, of course, is in that position. So yeah, you got to do it for that one. I agree with what we're saying. You don't want to have money tied up for basically a year. But for those ones where that's the angle, you can't really wait once free agency begins.
The two teams with the worst Super Bowl odds next year. This gives me great joy. The Houston Texans, 28-1. I think everyone could see that one coming. And the Arizona Cardinals at 28-1.
281.
Yeah, that says a lot. Or sorry, 281. Yeah, thank you. That says a lot about the state of the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, so the draft is kind of the thing. Free agency and the draft are coming up now. I think it's worthwhile if people who are listening to this have never bet the draft before. I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to who are bettors that profit on the draft, all drafts. And then on the other side, I have yet to talk to a single person at a sports book that is excited about the NFL draft. They all lose money on it. And I like a quote from someone that works at a sports book. It's like, if I could guarantee lock in like even money on the draft, I'd take it right now. So it's going to be an exciting time. If you have not joined the Printing Press Discord, it'll be a great place to kind of get those takes and get that information in real time. We'll obviously talk about it on here. The PFF NFL Draft Guide is now live. It's a great place to uncover all of the information that you need about all of these different prospects. Go in and read more about them so you can kind of make your own informed decisions. It's taken a big step up this year, and there's some new pieces to it that will be coming throughout the offseason that you'll want to get involved in. Also, the free agency, big board, and all of the work that, Brad, you're doing with the contract projections, also super useful in terms of thinking about which teams might acquire who's out there, who they could add, and what that would mean when they do add them. So there's a lot of opportunity over the offseason to kind of capitalize on all of this stuff. I think the draft, personally, is my favorite. I'm curious if you guys started looking in to the draft at all, and if so, what takes do you guys have from the betting perspective?
I have one bet in that unfortunately I guess can't get anymore, but this is the type of bet I like. But it ties into just a general thing of like playing against certainty. Like there's way too much certainty in this space, and so Will Levis was 10-1 to go first overall. It's now like plus 450. But again, not just to brag about my
7-1
CLV. Okay, so but more just like again, like there's going to be consensus. There's going to be a lot of these narratives, and like I think being a contrarian, A, is the best way to go about it, and then B, I think sucker bets in the draft are like the over under on total players at a position, over under total guys from Alabama and Georgia. Like find individual bets you like. Trust certain draft sources that you think put out good information and good intel, and look at their mock drafts and see if there's a name that kind of keeps sticking. I think where you get bogged down is trying to do the how many quarterbacks or how many whatever. Just find particular cases where you think there's an edge to be exploited.
Brad, is Zay Flowers' agent a good source to trust for the draft?
According to Zay Flowers' agent, he's a combination of Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Devontae Adams rolled into one. Which is that it?
We couldn't throw Jamar Chase in there? I mean,
yeah,
about Tyreek Hill?
A splash of Jamar, right? And a splash of Jamar.
And Kadarius.
Well, again, I guess I do have, or I do think he's an interesting potential play for first receiver taken. I would say at the same time, though, we fall in love with, Senior Bowl risers and these hot names and yada, yada. He's like 5'11", 170 pounds. Like at the end of the day, the NFL is changing, but also measurables and those things still do matter. And I think it's another edge where you're going to hear these flashy names and things happen. And yes, he's a good football player. He's getting comped to guys like T.Y. Hilton, Deshaun Jackson. I've seen Antonio Brown comps out there. I wouldn't be surprised if he is an Antonio Brown, Deshaun Jackson combo. But yeah, also, yeah, measurables matter. Like they're looking for traits. They're looking for translatable skills. There are Devontae Smiths of the world. But he was a Heisman winner, not a Boston College superstar. So
something that I think is interesting, and there are some numbers up, at least on FanDuel, that I'm looking at right now. And this is not good for my my Chicago Bears take, and not good for Brad's heart. But Jalen Carter is 5-1 to be the number one player selected. And I've got to imagine that is what they think the odds are of the Chicago Bears staying at 1 and drafting someone, because I don't think anyone is trading up to take Jalen Carter at number 1. That's interesting because the odds should be a bazillion to 1, and they're not. Brad, do you think that's like an accurate take on the situation?
So it's the interesting thing you just brought up, which is find another way to bet the Bears not making, like you said, you're betting 5-1 on the Bears staying and making the pick. That's actually what you're betting on. You're not betting on Jalen Carter going first. No, I think that they're going to trade down if they can. And I think there are going to be, probably not Houston at 2, but Indy at 4, Carolina, and Tennessee at 11, Carolina's at 7 or 9. There's all those teams, the Raiders are at 7 or 9. I'm flipping those two in my head, but I think all of those teams, even Seattle sitting at 5, I think is a possible trade candidate as well. So no, I would not be betting Jalen Carter to go first overall. But if the Bears stay, in my opinion, that is the pick. So.
Yeah. A lot of quarterbacks this year. First wide receiver drafted, which you mentioned, Zay Flowers, is 23-1. Quentin Johnston out of TCU is the favorite at plus 160. Jordan Addison plus 250. Jackson Smith in Jigba plus 270. And Jalen Hyatt at plus 430 are all ahead of Zay Flowers. Don't just take our word for it. Head over to pff.com/mock and get your mock drafts in. Tremendous work done by everyone here. Brad, especially, you do so much for the trade evaluations and compensation. So it's like a realistic, are you actually able to trade this player? You can trade actual players in this thing, which is just fantastic. And obviously Timo Riske, who has been on the podcast before, a legend in the background who makes the kind of mock draft sim work. But go check it out. Get yourself prepared for the off season. We will continue as we normally do with the PFF forecast, so don't have to worry about that. Back to our normal schedule on Sundays and Wednesdays. Go check out the Printing Press Discord. The link is in the description, and go follow all these guys: Arjun, Menon 100 at PFF_Brad and at PFF_Ben Brown. Thank you guys for hanging out. Love y'all. Peace.